Do you often wonder who you should believe when it comes to property investing? Well, over the past couple of years, I've been thinking the same. So I've made it my mission to try and culminate high quality sources of information when it comes to property investing. Now, lucky for you, you don't have to do all of the work I've done. You can just watch this video and start adding these people to your content diet. Hi guys, I'm Jim, and along with my brother Dan, we have a small property portfolio. We help people build their portfolios in the Northwest completely hands-free. This channel is going to document my learnings and experience of what property investing is actually like on the ground. So if you're interested in growing your own portfolio and learning more about property, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Now, everyone I'm going to talk about are people whose content I consume on a regular basis and who, in my opinion, do not sugarcoat property investing and give honest assessments. All of the links to their profiles and information will of course be in the description below. First off the bat is Danny Inman. Now, he's a property investor and developer. He's worked his way up from sourcing property deals for other investors to moving into large-scale development, regularly having a £25 million property pipeline of developments. Danny has worked his way up through the property triangle, so it's safe to say he knows the pitfalls and challenges at each stage. He's also the founder of the Prosperity Network, which is a property community full of investors. Now, I just want to make it clear, I'm not a member of this network and have no link to them. What I will say is Danny Inman's Instagram profile is a source of super useful information, particularly around the economy. Whenever there's a change in the base rate or a major economic announcement, he will typically do a long video breaking down his opinions on the situation. Now, personally, I find him super well balanced and giving a legit point of view on these things, so I'd 100% recommend giving him a follow. Next up, we have Adam Lawrence. Similar to Danny before him, Adam's expertise lies in anything to do with the market and economics, having attended the University of Oxford to study philosophy, politics, and economics. Adam is an expert when it comes to anything to do with the economy. Specifically in property investing, he's been involved in over 650 property deals, using his knowledge around joint ventures to retain most of these deals. It's mind-blowing to me the level of detail he goes into. Every Sunday, he publishes his Sunday supplement, which is essential reading for anyone who wants to be in the loop from an economic point of view. He also uploads an audio version of his supplements on his YouTube channel, so if you're not much of a reader, you can always give it a listen. The final stop on our tour of economic information is Mark Homer. Mark is an experienced property investor, developer, business owner, and co-founder of Progressive Property. Mark has developed in excess of 600,000 square feet of mainly pubs, offices, and retail into mixed and residential use. Many of these projects were built in-house by Progressive. Mark has also sourced and developed in excess of 1,000 units since 2003, and he's held an equity share in portfolios which is developed within property valued at over 80 million. Mark's podcast, Mark My Words, is a source of valuable information around updates to do with legislation, changes in the political space, and economic space. Mark will often post Q&As on his podcast which go into the details around challenges of property investing. My only criticism on Mark's podcast is he doesn't post enough content, but in fairness, the stuff he does post is normally top drawer. Next up, we have the Hustling with Houses podcast. Callum's created something really special with his podcast, and I think he'll be the UK's biggest property podcast if he carries on with his growth. Callum's based in the Northwest, right by me, and he's done a range of different property strategies, including flip, buy-to-let, and SA. So he has the perfect blend of experience for hosting a general property investing podcast. He gets a wide range of guests on his show talking about every different way you can invest into property. The interesting thing is he gets people at different stages. So we'll get someone who's doing mega developments and people who are doing their first few deals. So there's certainly something for everyone in his podcast. I found it's a nice blend between getting to hear people's stories behind the successes and struggles of investing in property, along with some actual tangible advice which is going to move your property business forward. A good piece of networking advice is to listen to these podcasts and reach out to the guests if you're trying to do the strategy they're talking about. I've made some brilliant connections doing this. You can get some leverage out of all the hard work Callum's doing by finding these quality guests. Another one on the podcast train is the Inside Property Investing podcast with Mike Stenhouse. Like most investors, Mike started out in the corporate world where he met his then girlfriend, now wife, but then get involved in flipping properties in the evenings and weekends. After leaving his job and starting in property full-time with his letting agency, Mike noticed a gap in the market for investors to tell their property stories. So in February 2015, he launched the Inside Property Investing podcast. And it was around this time when Mike moved from flipping houses into HMOs, then into commercial conversions. Being honest, this podcast was critical for me taking the jump into the HMO strategy, with countless interviews with HMO investors from across the country. It's a really enjoyable podcast and dead easy to whack on when you're driving or in the gym. Finally, we have the NRLA. I know I've mostly spoken about personal brands and podcasts in this video, but the National Residential Landlords Association is a goldmine of information for any investor. You can go to the website and they've got hundreds of blog posts around everything to do with property investing. From what you need to do before a tenant can move in, they even have different courses which can break down the legal side of property investing. And to top that all off, they even have a phone line which you can call for advice if you have any issues which you might need help with, which can be a godsend to investors. They also send out a magazine once a quarter which is super useful for updates and different stories from from other investors. Now there is a cost to this one. It costs around £99 for the year, but if you use my referral code, you save 15 quid on your membership, and so do I. And I would recommend this to anyone who's serious about investing in property. Given the cost, the value you get is incredible. There you have it. Now there's loads more people I could have mentioned, but these few are the big hitters for me. Now if you've got any recommendations, please pop them in the comments below and I'll check them out. Don't forget to subscribe, connect with all the people in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.